Yes! Yes! Oh, man. What a great day. I'm here Tuesday. Man, what a great day. Wait a minute. There may be, all right, bear with me here. Kind of a hectic day going on here, so I'm a little late. I apologize about that. I should be streaming to you live from Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Doing three here. I might try to go ahead and go on more streaming services. Well, we'll figure it out. I got a great show for you. By the way, you want to go ahead and in the description below, check out me and Denver Gator. He's been red hot picking games for the week. Because he's been picking games for the week, he's been doing really good. I have not, but I did have a very good weekend. I'm going to go over all the games for week 12. And if you watch the video, again, the link's in the description below. You get to see what game I already put action on, because I have action on Thanksgiving and I'm bird dogging a couple other games. But I'm going to give you all the games early on. There are some weather games I'm going to double check on because there are some high winds in New York and Cleveland, and that should affect some over-unders. And I'm going to have all the details ironed out and my final picks Friday, because after Thanksgiving, if my game hits and I have some extra money, then there's several games I like. So I'm going to kind of go from there. I'm going to make sure that everything is.
There's several games.
Whoops, I apologize about that.
I want to make sure that everything is.
Sorry about that. A little technical difficulties, but all right. Well, I'm just going to dive into it here. First game I got is this is a game that's really going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of action on this game, believe it or not. Buffalo travels to Detroit. Detroit is now it's a 10. I might be wrong on this, but I think it's opened up at 8.5. And it's 9. It's now 10. By the way, I'm using all the numbers from DraftKings. So depending on which service you use, depending on who you like, who you don't like, that may affect it. I don't have enough guts to take Detroit here, but that's the team I like. I mean, that's legitimately the team I like. I really like Detroit here. They proved me wrong. I picked against them last week, and I got to own up to it. I make a mistake, I got to eat some crow. I'm still eating some crow. I feel really bad about it. The over-under is also going way up. It's now 54. And again, I'm using DraftKings. So, this is just going to be a tough one. I really like Detroit here. I just don't have enough balls to pick against Buffalo, a team that I think that really is, they're kind of behind the 8 ball here. They're behind Miami. Even though they beat the Chiefs, they're behind Kansas City. So I'm really nervous about picking against Buffalo, but I do like Detroit at home. I do like 10. 54 is a really big number. I actually like the under, even though both offenses can score. It's just 54 is just a really, really big number here. Next game is the Giants at Dallas, and this is a number I thought would go down. It's done just the opposite. It was at 9. It's now 9.5. This is just going way up. The over-under is 45.5, and I think that's a solid number that probably will also go up. I personally thought there would be a lot of action. I really thought there would be a lot of action on the Giants. There's not. A lot of Cowboys action, divisional rivals. This is a game I'm really, really looking forward to. And I'm an AFC guy, so I'm really excited about this personally. I think this is just going to be absolutely fantastic. I got burnt by the Giants last week. I do like the Giants to cover. I kind of like them to cover. anything over 7, it's now going to 9.5. I mean, that's a huge number. Dallas probably wins the game, but definitely like the Giants to cover here. Next game I got is New England traveling to Minnesota. The over-under is very low, 42.5. A lot of people think this is going to be a very low-scoring game. And if you checked out my video with all my bet picks, y'all know I took New England, but I got New England at 3. I think New England wins this game outright. I really do. I think New England. This is the game that I like the most. Now, keep in mind, I do like Detroit and I do like the Giants, but I think the Patriots really just match up really well against Minnesota. You have a team with a banged-up offensive line and a banged-up defensive line. For the first time all season, they were just shell-shocked. I mean, they just didn't really show up. You had a big game and nothing, and this is a lot for a first-time head coach to overcome. I think it's too much to overcome, especially when you got Bill Belichick, who's going to use the motivation from only putting up 3 points against a really good Jets defense. He's going to use that game as motivation. They're going to, trust me, New England went into practice this week thinking that they lost the game, and that's kind of the attitude that the New England Patriots are going to have. So that's kind of how I see it, but this is my number one game. I like New England here. Funk's in the house, man. What's good, buddy? Funk, I tried to tell you the Lions were going to win, man. Why don't you listen to me? I don't get it. So I'm still eating that crow, man. I really, really, really want to pick the Lions to cover 10. All right. I really want to pick them to cover 10. I'm not going to do it, but I really like that game. Actually, I have good plays, I think, for all 3 of these, but the one I'm going to do is I'll probably put down the game. I'll probably just stick with the late game, and that's New England to cover 3. So I think it's a lot to ask for Minnesota. So, I mean, everybody, by the way, everybody in Kansas City is pulling for Detroit. And this is going to be a really fun game because if Detroit does win, you now legitimately enter the playoff conversation, and they're a dangerous team only if they can get by Buffalo. If you lose to Buffalo, you're kind of just saying, okay, well, look, we had some good spurts here and there. Wait till next year. So I'm still eating crow, but yeah, man. I actually thought the line would go down. It's going up. A lot of Buffalo action, and I'm really surprised about that. Tim Wallace, welcome, brother. Dude, when it's said and done, is Kelce the greatest tight end ever? I say yes, sir. Well, he's making the argument. Kelce has 6 consecutive 1,000 yard seasons, 6 consecutive 1,000 receiving yard seasons. Do you know who's the other tight end that has more than 4 consecutive? Kelce has 6. How many tight ends have more than 4? The answer is 0. The previous record was 3 consecutive 1,000 yard seasons. And it's funny because I was having an argument a long time ago about Brett Favre and how I think he's one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. And he thought Favre was overrated. And he said the only good thing about Favre is that he just played for so long and he, had, that consecutive game played streak, and that was it. Do you realize how hard that is? Kyle Pitts is possibly out for the year. Mark Andrews has missed some time. Darren Waller's missed almost a whole season. He got all that money, he missed almost a whole season. George Kittle can't stay healthy. So, I mean, being healthy is a large part of it. There's an old saying, you can't make the club in the tub. And when you are out there producing, it means a lot. Does he enter the conversation? I think he does. I really think he does. If you want to tell me there's a better tight end in NFL history, I'd say great. A lot of people, matter of fact, I saw this on social media. I wish I would have brought this, but a guy was like saying prime Gronk is better than prime Kelsey. And it's like, well, great. You know, you got like 25 games of prime Gronk, and I got 7 seasons of prime Kelsey. I mean, what do you want? Do you want what? Let me see. What 7 times 16? 102. So let's just say 100. All right. Do you want 30 games of Gronk, or do you want 100 games of Kelsey? I mean, why not? Why not? So those are it's interesting, because I was thinking about doing a video, Kelsey versus Tony G, and breaking them both down and who's the greatest tight end in Chiefs history. So Jeff A, welcome, brother, man. How are you doing, man? Hi, anything happened Sunday night? Was it a fun game? I mean, it's a fun game. This game has too many variables. We could see anything in early game. Oh, I agree. That's why I'm not putting action on Detroit. I really could see Buffalo coming in there and just, I mean, they did this a couple times this season where they just bam, 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 and win 45-10. I could also see a situation where Detroit gets some turnovers, plays ball control. One thing is that I like the Detroit offensive line against a smaller, beat up Denver defensive line. And I think that if the game's close, it benefits Detroit. If it's a lower scoring game, it benefits Detroit, even though Detroit's had some good offensive explosions throughout the year. I firmly believe that if Detroit keeps it close, the advantage is really Detroit, because then you'll have Buffalo who's going to get a little nervous. Buffalo has a beat up, undersized defensive line. So I kind of like that matchup. If Detroit's smart, it's a run heavy game plan against Buffalo and try to shorten the game up, try to make it as few possessions as possible. And if that's the case, then you definitely like the under. I do like Detroit, and I like the under in this game. I don't have the balls to pick either one, though. Denver Gator brought the popcorn, waiting for the Lions fans to show up. Be gentle on him, guys. Yes, be gentle. No, you know what, Denver? You're wrong. Don't be gentle on me. I deserve it. Funk warned me not to lose $100. Funk did not want me to lose $100. He wanted me to spend that $100 on cocaine and hookers. I know it. And Funk wanted me not to lose money. He begged me, and I was wrong. I need to eat crow. Be hard on me. Don't listen to Denver Gator, but I am so happy that you're here, Denver Gator. You are my brother from another mother. Shannon Sharp and Tony G. It's funny, because if you talk to greatest tight ends of all time, I would go old school with you, and I would go with 13 minutes in, I'm just drawing complete blank. I am so embarrassed about it. I am so embarrassed about it. It's the tight end award that goes to college. The best tight end in college football is former Baltimore Colts. I'm sorry, the Baltimore Colts tight end, in my opinion, was the greatest tight end of all time. And I cannot believe I can't think of his name. I am so embarrassed. If you had to tell me he's the greatest tight end of all time, I would tell you the former Baltimore. I'm beyond upset. I am beyond upset that I cannot think of this guy's name. I am beyond John Mackey. Okay, I'm so sorry. Greatest tight end of all time would be John Mackey, and the reason why John Mackey was, he blocked like a Mack truck. All right. Probably the best blocking tight end. Like when you talk to greatest tight ends of all time, John Mackey, best blocker. Yards per catch, 15.8. That's higher than Randy Moss. If you watch Super Bowl V, there's a deflected pass. Mackey takes 80 yards for a touchdown. It was at one point the longest reception or longest play in Super Bowl history. I don't remember when it was broken, but it stayed for quite a while. But John Mackey, there's a clip. Matter of fact, you could I don't have this pulled up, but you could Google or YouTube Colts tight end versus versus Lions team, and he breaks a tackle of like the whole team like dog piles on him, and he literally just runs right through him. That to me would be the greatest tight end of all time, John Mackey, because he blocked like a truck. He was short. He was like 6'1", but you have to realize back then in the 60s and 70s, 245 was like the size of a lineman, but he was also like the fastest player on the field. For my money, he was the greatest tight end of all time. Then, Tony Gonzalez was setting all these records. And I used to say, well, Tony Gonzalez is the best receiving tight end of all time. It took a long time because, you had Kellen Winslow, you had Ozzie Newsome. I respect Gronk's game. Kellen Winslow, oh my God. If you want to talk about great receiving tight ends, look, Kellen Winslow changed the way the game's played. I want to say Jackie Smith. People remember him dropping the pass, and I think it's Super Bowl 13, but one of the greatest tight ends who ever lived. I kind of want a rabbit hole here. The thing is, Kelsey enters that conversation now. He enters that conversation as the greatest who ever lived. And that's kind of cool. The Lions have teams like the Panthers, Jags, and Jets. The Lions only have 2 games left. They're actually scary. Plus, it would be funny to see a Packers in Week 18 having to play spoiler for once. That would be a lot of fun, man. That would be a lot of fun. Trust me, everybody in Kansas City is pulling for Detroit this week. Everybody in New England, everybody in New York, everybody in Miami, every AFC team is pulling for Detroit. We're all pulling for it. I really want to take Detroit in 10, and I really, really, really want to take the under. I'm not going to. Excuse me. Yeah, I really want to. I really want to. I took New England in 3, and DraftKings has it 2.5. I'm sure she shopped around. You could get 3. The woman said that actually sounds like what I would suggest. I'm missing something. Sorry. I deserve it. I should. There's no excuse for me not to know John Mackey's name just right off the top of my head. For years, I called him the greatest tight end of all time. So. Slasher, what's up, guys? Not a pretty win last week. Lions did their things. Hats off to that defense. Hopefully you watched that video of me eating some crow. I also, the team that had the most impressive victory this week, besides my Chiefs, of course. No, I'm teasing. I think the Eagles actually had the most impressive win, and the reason why, if I am correct, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was 16-3 into the fourth quarter. And that's a game that you need. All right. Blowing a team out 40-3 doesn't impress me. All right. It doesn't impress me. You know what impresses me is that when you're down by more than 10 points in the fourth quarter and you played really bad and you come back and you win. That's impressive. And that's something I don't recall the Eagles doing a lot of this year. I think they might have done it once or twice, but and here's the thing, the Colts have been playing good defense all year. Colts have played good defense all year. It's not like you did it on against a bad defense. You did it against a really, really good defense, and you came back and you won the game. That was very impressive. There was like a thing on social media about who's MVP, and most people said it was Mahomes, but does Hurts belong in the MVP conversation? Absolutely. And that's an MVP type of performance where you don't play all that well And then fourth quarter against a good defense, you come back and you win the game. So great win for the Eagles. Very, very impressive. And the Lions did do that thing. By the way, if you haven't yet, go check out that video. I was really impressed by that. Shannon Sharp seems super bad. Okay, so here's the deal with Shannon Sharp. He was a 7th round pick out of Savannah State. He was actually a wide receiver, but he came in training camp. He was 6'2", 228. So they didn't know what to do with him. They were like, he's not really a wide receiver. He's not really a tight end. We don't know how to use him. And supposedly, and I can't prove this, but supposedly what happened was at the time, another name, 20 minutes in, another brain freeze. Mike Shanahan, I'm sorry. So Mike Shanahan was trying to figure out, should we even keep Sharp on the roster? And by the way, this is a tough decision. A lot of people think that players have a lot of input on player who stays within the team and who doesn't. That's not, it really doesn't happen. It's usually not the players, but with Sharp, he kept on making plays and he really didn't know what to do. So he asked John Elway and he goes, should we use him as a tight end? He goes and supposedly Elway was like, I don't know what you call him, but we really need a guy like this. And supposedly John Elway was like, hey, we need to keep this guy. He makes plays. And supposedly if John Elway didn't stick up for him, there's a chance he would have been cut. And at the time, tight ends weren't wide receivers. Like Kelsey, I call him a wide receiver. Darren Waller's a wide receiver. But it wasn't that way. You had receiving tight ends. I forgot about Keith Jackson. Maybe the greatest athlete to ever play tight end was Keith Jackson. And you had Ozzie Smith, but Ozzie Smith was a big dude. He was built like a tight end, Sharp wasn't. Sharp was pretty undersized, but one thing Sharp did is he did put on what I call the NFL 20. And I think towards the end of his career, he was like 240 and really was a decent run blocker. But yeah, Sharp was I don't want to tell you he was a wide receiver. I think he was like started his career at Savannah State as a wide receiver, shifted to a tight end, but he wasn't a traditional type of player. He also got a lot of notoriety because at the time Sterling Sharp was, and by the way, Sterling Sharp, if you don't know, is a guy who should be in a pro football. I think he got in, but it's funny. The Hall of Fame announcements were just announced. I was spending a lot of time just going through the Hall of Fame because there's a lot of really good players. A lot of really good players. I don't know how old you are, but Albert Lewis is on that list. Former Chief, former Raider, one of the greatest corners I've ever seen play. He may not make the Hall of Fame, deserves to be in, but okay, kind of just got to reel it back in. But yeah, big fan of Sharp. Only 4 fan bases went to Bills to win. The rest 4. Who are the other 3? I seriously, who are the other 3? I mean, I actually don't really think that, Green Bay, Chicago, or Green Bay and Chicago and Minnesota really care too much about this. And the reason why I say that is that, if the Lions win, they're in better draft position. So, yeah. Hopefully you checked out some of my shorts and check out the video because I do mention the Chiefs and I do like the Rams to cover 14.5. That is a game I like. I'm going to go in order, but I do like the Rams to cover 14.5. For those of you that don't know, the Kansas City Chiefs hate covering games. So the woman was saying that, spend it on hookers. It's okay, I get it. They let us all score in the fourth quarter. I was nail biting, but happy with the win. Yeah. That very impressive win. That's a win that impresses me. Not winning 40-3, that doesn't impress me. You come back against a good defense in the fourth quarter, it does impress me. Jeff O, the Rams look great. Todd Heap, yeah. Todd Heap was a really good player. God, we can go down a rabbit hole of great tight ends. Nobody remembers Ben Coates. I'm pretty sure you do, though. Ben Coates was a really good one. God, he was a guy I just loved. I love Ben Coates. Keith Jackson was really ahead of his time. In today's game, Keith Jackson would be like an MVP type of player, probably the most physically gifted tight end to ever play. He was a guy I absolutely loved too. I think I mentioned all the really good ones that I really had a crush on. I mean, Kellen Winslow just kind of changed everything. Mike Ditka, believe it or not, like he had 1,000 yards receiving his rookie year, but he caught like 19 passes at the University of Pittsburgh as a tight end. So, I mean, it's God, man. I mean, the tight end positions one have always been my favorites, and I've been spoiled because like right after Gonzalez, we got Travis Kelce. It was actually funny before Gonzalez, the Chiefs organization just had a really bad time trying to find tight ends. We kept on drafting guys, bringing in players, and no one would fit. And then we traded up in the first round to get Tony Gonzalez. So Mark Bavaro, oh God, that was a good one. I love Bavaro. Sterling, oh God. For those of you that are young, and you look at the stats, it's not going to stand out, but Sterling Sharp was at the time, he had like a 3-year stretch. He was the best player in football. I'm not exaggerating either. I really do think he was the best player in football. I mean, he was just phenomenal. Oh shit. Amazement. I deleted your picks. I am really sorry about that. I deleted your picks. I thought I had saved. Still alive, Dan took the Washington Commandos in my survivor. Who do you got this week? Your survivor pool is very limited, I'd have to think. Seriously, I almost think they'd want to see Detroit win. I really do. And the reason why is I think the Bears, especially if Fields doesn't play, I'm pretty sure he will, but I really, seriously, I don't think they mind. I think as far as draft position, but I mean, I know there's a lot of fans in that fan base. So yeah, I get it. I'm being a little facetious. Excuse me. God, how did I forget about Antonio Gates? There was a while I thought Antonio Gates was better than Tony G. There was a while. Antonio Gates was so good. Went 3 out of 4 on my bets, would have been perfect, but Fields got hurt, shoulder injury. Hope he plays this week since I have him in fantasy. If you have him on fantasy, do not start him. There's some high winds in New York. It's about 20-mile-an-hour winds. Also, it's going to be cold. The Jets defense is for real. Whoever is your backup quarterback, put him in. Fields, I think he's going to play. But I would definitely put him on your bench if you have him for fantasy. High wins against good defense, that's never a good sign. Matter of fact, let's dive into this here. Bears at New York. New York's now a 4.5 point favorite. Over under 39.5. That number is going to drop. They're going to eyeball the Fields injury, but I'd be surprised if people really want to count on the Jets to cover a lot of points. I would avoid this game like the plague. I was originally going to jump all over the over on this game because I thought this would be the week that you want to jump in on the Jets scoring points, whether it's Simeon, whether it's Zach Wilson. It wouldn't surprise me if Simeon starts, but you're going against high winds, some bad elements, even though the Bears defense is bad. If it wasn't high winds, I would take the over on this game in a heartbeat. I would strongly suggest you not bet on this game. Yeah, I loved Mark Bavaro, man. Mark Bavaro, God, he was a good player. I saw that Cowboys win come and just didn't think it would be a lot. So I'm not surprised that they won. I'm surprised that excuse me. I'm sorry, my stomach's really bothering me. As I slam an energy drink. I'm not surprised that they won. I am super surprised it was that lopsided. I'm with you completely. Sterling Sharp was lethal. Oh, God. People aren't going to realize how good guys like Michael Irvin, Art Monk, Sterling Sharp, like people are never really going to realize how good those guys were. Just the way stats are nowadays, and that it's a passing era. But I mean, some really, really great receivers. God, Antonio Gates was so good, folks. Yeah, that Chargers team underachieved big time. I mean, you had Phillip Rivers, you had Gates, you had Tomlinson, Junior Seau, may rest in peace. I mean, the Chargers had some teams with some really good talent, and that's kind of the fate of the Chargers. Great talent. It's funny, the team that made the Super Bowl, there was probably 3 or 4, maybe even 5 teams in Charger history that was better than the team that actually went to the Super Bowl. But kind of a team that has so much talent, but just doesn't get done. That's bad. That's really bad because there's high wind in Cleveland. I was really tempted to take the Browns. I'm going to go in order, but I was really tempted. I'm sorry, to take the Bucks. They play Cleveland, but it's high winds. That's a tough one. Next up, Houston at Miami. Miami is a 13.5-point favorite. The over-under is 46.5. Man, that's a lot of points. It's a lot of points. The only thing really preventing me from taking Houston is that they're just so bad. I could also see Miami just, really kind of ramping up, trying to get the 1 seed, and Houston. I don't know if they're going to throw in the towel and just give up. I would avoid this game at all costs. I wouldn't even, bet on the over under, even though it looks like an over game. I have no idea what to think. Here. Houston, to be honest, looks like they've played well over the last couple of weeks, just came up short. I mean, they gave up, I think it was a pick 6, like second or third play against Washington, and it's just not enough for a team really limited offensively. Damian Pierce got almost nothing, but I mean, he is a Florida kid, so I don't know if that kind of rejuvenates him. I would avoid this game at all costs. I will say this though, if you do like Miami, you may want to consider like I don't like doing this, but you may want to consider like a 2-way teaser, some sort of alternate spread, because I don't think the line's going to drop at all. If nothing else, it may go up, but it won't get over 14. 14 is where it'll cap out. But man, that's a lot of points, folks. Gates was just a big receiver. Matter of fact, Gates didn't even play college football, where Tony Gonzalez did. Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates both were college basketball players, but Antonio Gates didn't even play football, and that was kind of a neat thing. After Tony Gonzalez made the jump, teams started really looking at that. There was a tight end with Kansas City. Last I heard, he was with Chicago that didn't play football either. As a college basketball player. As a matter of fact, when the coach called him in after the season, he thought that he was going to go overseas and play professional basketball. And he said, Kansas City Chiefs were interested. It was John Dorsey, of all people. John Dorsey found him and asked him if he'd want to come in and play NFL tight end. He was in the NFL for like almost 10 years. So I'm drawing a blank on his name. 34 minutes in the show, had a couple crazy name forgets. So crazy to think such different personalities with us. Yeah, they are. I used to love Sterling Sharp on TV. I have no idea why Sterling Sharp's not on TV. He was always the best dressed person. He was super sharp. Everything about him. He looked sharp. He talked sharp. Shannon is just, yeah. Sterling's like, yo, man, what's up? I mean, I can't do it, but I mean, he was just really cool. I really liked Sterling Sharp. I have no idea why he's not on TV anymore. Love Sterling Sharp on TV. Completely different personalities. Funk is saying the best comment here. Art Monk would destroy the league today. Shit. So would Tim Brown. It's just a shame because Tim Brown played with like 25 different shit quarterbacks in his career, and Art Monk was so good, and nobody knew about him. He was a quiet dude. He was just a quiet dude. It's kind of funny. Being quiet's almost a bad thing now. I think that's part of the reason why Andre Johnson wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer. Big mistake, by the way, of the Hall of Fame committee not getting him in as a first ballot Hall of Famer. But, Art Monk in today's game would be nearly unstoppable. I don't even know who you would compare him to. I mean, he was built like a tight end. I mean, he was a big dude in the 80s. He was like 6'3", 215, but he was strong. He may have looked thin, but he wasn't. He was exceptionally strong. Great hands, better speed than people thought. But, he was surrounded by the Smurfs, if you remember that. So, I mean, he had a lot of speed. Ricky Sanders, Gary Clark. So, really didn't need to. His main job was just getting those short and intermediate routes, but whoever the quarterback was, Washington had a lot of quarterbacks too, not nearly as many as Tim Brown, but he had a lot of quarterbacks, and he would just, you're right though. He would have in today's era, thousands of receptions. I mean, just amazing. Art Monk's a guy nobody will really realize how good this guy is. Hey, Denver Gators telling everybody, gives a thumbs up. Man, I appreciate it, brother. Give me a thumbs up when you come in. I really would appreciate it. I still got the Chiefs. I'll take them. I thought I took them week 2, but I took the Rams week 2. That's the game they almost blew to the Falcons. Good time to pick the Chiefs. Yep, take the Chiefs. Trevor Lawrence is available in my league. Pick him up. Well, it's funny. Let's do this one. Baltimore at Jacksonville. Jacksonville's a 4-point dog. The over-under is 43.5. Me and Denver Gator really like Baltimore here. I don't think this is a good matchup for Jacksonville. Is he a better option than Tom Brady and high wins in Cleveland or Justin Fields? Maybe. I think so, but I wouldn't count on him to, depends on what kind of league you're in. Without knowing more details and everything, but I think that would be smart to pick up Trevor Lawrence for this week. I would go back to Fields or Brady, but yeah, I would recommend that. Even though I think this is going to be a low scoring game, the over under is 43.5. I don't know what to think because Baltimore really struggled against Carolina. Carolina has a very underrated but pretty good defense. I don't think Jacksonville's there yet, but Jacksonville does have some talent and some speed. This could be a more competitive game than people think. Baltimore, a lot of times just plays really all over the place. It seems like they like on a bad team, they don't play very well. Against good team, they do play well. So is it playing down to your level of competition? You could see that with Baltimore here. I would recommend it for this week. I would recommend it for this week, and but I don't expect a lot of points out of either Brady or Trevor Lawrence, depending on who you get. Let me know Friday if that's what you end up doing. Tight ends playing basketball makes sense. Lions have a wide receiver that was a lacrosse player, and he was a lacrosse player. No shit. The greatest football player of all time was arguably a better lacrosse player, and that's Jim Brown. Jim Brown. There's not a professional lacrosse players league, but there was Jim Brown. Jim Brown supposedly was better at lacrosse than he was at football, if you can believe that. But I actually really like that Kennedy guy. So That's kind of cool, man. That's kind of cool. That's a Dorsey staple because he got, and I'm drawing a blank on the tight end they picked up. He also got Lourne Durney. We called him LDT in Kansas City. He was going to med school in Canada. So the Chiefs worked out a deal with him, signed him to a real big contract, and then once they brought in Trey Smith, they traded him to the Jets, and then the Jets, I don't know all the story, but he was in Canada practicing medicine, and now he's back with the Jets. But John Dorsey found him in Canada of all places, so it's something. That's a John Dorsey staple. Finding a lacrosse player who plays wide receiver. Expect that from John Dorsey. So yeah. Shannon does dress sharp, but he just yaps so much, too emotional when it comes to certain topics. Like, that's just what you get today. It's why I don't watch a lot of Colin Cowherd or Stephen A. Smith or any of like the big name shows. That's why I do watch Good Morning Football. I have that on my DVR. I have some other shows on my DVR, but I don't watch the Shannon, Skip Bayless. And by the way, I have nothing but respect for Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith. I mean, Stephen A. Smith supposedly, like when coming up, would work like 12 to 16 hours a day, like every single day, and I got nothing but respect for those guys. It's just it's just more shock jock type of stuff, and it's more just let's try to I hate the word triggered, but that's the best verb I can think of. They just try to trigger people instead of like trying to inform people. So there's a lot of other shows I watch. I hardly ever watch that. So. Oh, God. Art was stuck on running the Redskins, handoff 70% of the time. And, yeah, the dude looked crazy huge in middle huddle because of the Smurfs. I know you remember the Smurfs. There's a lot of people in here going Smurfs, but, yeah, I know you know Smurfs. And if Rice was in Oakland, Tim was in San Francisco, Tim is to go. Yeah, you're probably right. This is going to sound like an insult to Jerry Rice, and it's not. It's really not. Tim Brown might be, if he was on the 49ers with Joe Montana and Jerry Rice, people may talk about Tim Brown being the greatest receiver of all time. And Tim Brown's career was really interesting because he won Heisman Trophy at Notre Dame, and he was a big dude. I mean, for a wide receiver, he's 6'1", 195. His second year in the league, because he ran kicks, punts. I mean, he did it all. He tore his ACL. Now, back in the late 80s, early 90s, I think it was in 89, he tore his ACL. It's not like today. That injury normally ends your career. So it was funny. He won the fastest guy in the award. He actually outran Darrell Green. That's how fast he was. He comes back from knee surgery to the Raiders. Remember, the Raiders signed all those gold medal winners of the 4x100 team. It was like Willie Gault, Ron Brown, Mervin Hernandez, and I can't remember the fourth one. Ron Brown and Mervin Hernandez were on the Raiders. So Tim Brown went from being the fastest player in the NFL to the slowest receiver on the Raiders. And he knew he didn't have the speed. He went from like 4.25 to 4.45. And you have to understand, with today's technology, Tim Brown would have been back running, the 4.3s or whatever. The 4.25 is not an exaggeration. Tim Brown outran Darrell Green. They used to be a big deal with the fastest man in the NFL when he had the Pro Bowl. I think it was like the 60-meter dash they did, but he actually outran Darrell Green. It was one of the few times Darrell Green lost that event. And he had to completely change his game. And what he did is he said, I worked more on my route running. I worked more on catching the ball. I bulked up, and it's actually amazing all the stuff Tim Brown did. I should stop ranting about it because, but if you're reading this comment where Funk says, and I say, if Rice was in Oakland and Tim was in San Francisco, Tim is the GOAT. He's not telling you wrong. Jerry Rice would still be in the Hall of Fame. Okay, let's not. I mean, you have to realize Tim Brown put up some miraculous numbers, but man, he had a lot of times those like 3 or 4 starting quarterbacks in the same year, were Joe Montana, Steve Young, and Tim Brown's a guy in today's game would actually be better because he would still have that 4.25 speed, or maybe the lack of speed that made him work harder. Anyway, I ranted on enough about it, so I apologize. Man, I want to see the Lions beat the Bills for some reason. Everybody wants to see the Lions beat the Bills. I'm kicking myself for not taking them in the points in the Chiefs-Chargers games. And Mahomes is just incredible. Chargers got to hate him at this point. They do. They do. They do big time. Yeah, Sterling was always dressed good. I just got here, so I missed your thoughts on the Lions game. I'll regurgitate. Lions are now a 10-point dog. The over-under is 54. I don't have enough balls to take Detroit and the under, but that's really what I want to do. Really what I want to do. And also, if you haven't already, check out my reaction video to the Giants Lions. So definitely check that out. I'm going to get to every single comment here, but I just want to go over this next game. Tampa Bay travels to Cleveland. Cleveland's only a 3-point home dog here. The over-under is 43.5. The weather is bad. There's going to be like 20-mile-an-hour winds, cold weather. I originally wanted to take Tampa Bay. When I saw the bad weather, I decided to go against it. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. If this was a situation where if this was in Tampa Bay, the line might be Tampa Bay 7.5 or something ridiculous, because it's going to be cold and it's going to be crappy. Big advantage to Cleveland. Am I saying Tom Brady can't play in cold weather? No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying with the high winds, I think it's going to be more of a running type of game. And even though Cleveland's run defense isn't that good, I'm not sure what Tampa Bay will be able to do against Nick Chubb. This is going to be a really interesting game. I like Tampa Bay. I like them to cover 3. I'm going to go ahead and postpone betting on that one, but I do think it is going to jump up to 3.5 sometime. That's a game I may put some action on, just because I want to buy into Tampa Bay, but they looked so bad at times this year that I'm just against it. So. A good topic for a video can be NFL futures. Future for Murray, Lance, Jimmy G, Zach Wilson, Brady, staffing, Rodgers, so many quarterbacks. That's actually a great idea. And the reason why is that, I could tell you with Murray and, I was going to say there was going to be more, but Murray, he may have a new quarterback, and. Oh, you said, okay. I don't know why. I saw Zach Wilson. I was thinking Russell Wilson. I have no idea. I was going to say with Murray and Wilson, but that's not true. But with Murray, I think you're going to see a new quarterback. A new head coach, and then God knows what they'll do then. And with that contract, it's going to be really hard. The Trey Lance, Jimmy G situation is going to be really interesting, because San Francisco is a team that just looks better and better and better. And what do you do? I mean, you can't really give Jimmy G a ton of money. I mean, the San Francisco 49ers are kind of in a bad cap situation, so they're going to have to get rid of it. That's actually a great idea. Great idea. If the Lions beat the Bills, do you think the Lions have a chance to run the table? It's a winnable schedule. Absolutely. Absolutely. They have a chance if they beat Buffalo. If they beat Buffalo, the topic Friday is going to be the Lions are going to push for the wild card. They're not going to catch Minnesota. Let's be very clear about that. Can they run the table? I think they have. You know what? Let me look, because I was going to say, I know that they play Green Bay the last game of the year. But I think they also play Minnesota one more time. I could be wrong on that. Okay. No. Okay. So, you know what? I forgot about this, but I remember looking at this. So here's the deal. They get 3 straight home games, right? You have Buffalo. You have Jacksonville. Jacksonville's a winnable game. And then you get Minnesota. All right. So if you beat Buffalo, you have a very good chance to beat Minnesota. Then you would be riding a 5-game winning streak, which would be awesome. Everybody, this would be the story of the NFL. This would be the story of this show. I'm dying for this because I want Friday to come in. I want to come in Friday, and all I want to hear is Lions won. Dan, you don't give us enough credit. Lions won. Playoffs. That's all I want to hear. Because you have a winnable game against Jacksonville. And then you play Minnesota. At New York's going to be a tough game. Carolina, surprisingly tough game, believe it or not. And then you're going to play Chicago and Green Bay at the end of the season. Do you run the table? I don't see you running the table. But if you get by Buffalo, we can now talk Detroit playoffs after Thanksgiving. How awesome is that? How awesome is that? I seriously, how awesome is that? I mean, I'm jacked up thinking about it. Cabbage Patch Kids. Nobody's going to get that, Funk. Nobody's going to get it. Daryl Green and the Mighty Power of the Tootsie Roll. Okay, so Daryl Green used to put a Tootsie Roll in his sock. True story. And he swore up and down, made him run faster. You can't prove it didn't work. Rodgers O-line versus Eagles D-line. How will this end? You know what? I am going to talk about that one. I am going to talk about that one. I'm saving that one for last though, because that's Sunday night. So, well, actually, not next to last, but Atlanta at Washington. Washington's now a 4-point favorite. The over/under is 42. I actually really like the over here. I think the weather's bad in Washington. If I'm correct, there's going to be high wind, possibility of rain. That's why the over/under is 42. I'm going to double check on that because I like the over on this game if the weather is decent. Atlanta's kind of a strange team. I want to buy in on Washington. I really want to buy in on Washington. I might. This is a game that I'm going to double check the weather report for Friday's game. If the weather report checks out and it's decent, even a little bad, I like over 42. This is going to be a fun game. It's hard to believe. Seriously, Atlanta versus Washington has playoff implications. I mean, how great is that? Cincinnati at Tennessee. Tennessee's a 1.5-point favorite. The over/under is 42.5. There's a lot of injuries for both teams. If you watch my video, which I recommend you do, it's in the description below, so check it out. This is a game I'm third dogging because Jamar Chase doesn't play. I like Tennessee a lot. Tennessee has a lot of injuries, and it's a damn shame because defensively they're playing lights out. I like the fact they got a few extra days here, and they're a home dog. Great game here with playoff implications, Cincinnati at Tennessee. And by the way, seriously, there's a lot of games I'd rather watch than Green Bay and Philly. Cincinnati and Tennessee's one of them. So, yeah, you're right. But that's a game I'm bird dogging because Jamar Chase doesn't play, and I'm going to double check the injury report. That's one I kind of like Tennessee. Ever since they gave the Chiefs all they can handle, I've really had a crush on the way Tennessee plays. Well coached. Derrick Henry's healthy. Man, I mean, good luck, And of course, Jerry had to open his mouth right after the game saying they're Super Bowl contenders. Man, that dude is always in the way of them being a legit team. Jimmy G will never get the credit, and that's the issue too. It's like he's just good enough to win games, but not a big one when lights are brighter. He can make throws to win when defenses force him. I'm sorry, it's a question. Can he make the throws to win when defenses force him to? I don't know. I mean, I've always thought he was above average, but in the NFL, if you don't have a top 10 quarterback, you go and get one. And I didn't really agree with them going Trey Lance because I don't know if that's the guy that's going to get you there, but I get what the 49ers are doing. But then, you get Trey Lance and then, you're going to, stock up on, Christian McCaffrey and Kittle and Deebo Samuel. And then when Brandon Ayuk, I don't know when his contract's up, but I mean, he's having a real good season. He's a guy I really liked out of Arizona State. And I mean, the funny thing is you can't sign him after this year unless you decide that you want Lance to be the backup, which I would do. I would roll with Jimmy G if I was San Francisco. I would say, you know what, would you be willing to be like, remember when Cleveland was going to sign Baker Mayfield like to a 3-year, it was like 3-year, $95 million contract. Baker's like, no, I don't want $95 million. And he was holding out because this was right after Mahomes signed his $500 million contract. So 95 in his eyes was, like I'm making a fifth of what Mahomes, and which, isn't really true, but he banked on himself and lost. But if I'm Jimmy G, I'd go to San Francisco and like, hey, look, can you give me a 3-year, $100 million deal? $100 million's nothing, but I mean, if I'm San Francisco and Jimmy G, like, hey, give me a 3-year, $100 million deal, give me $50 million guaranteed, and I'll take a pay cut, if I'm the backup. And then what you do is just kind of build Lance along. And if Lance takes off and earns a starting job, he was just given it at the beginning of this year. If he earns a starting job, you can always make a move to trade Jimmy G to a team that needs a quarterback. And unfortunately, you always need a team that needs a quarterback because you do have injuries at that position. So that's what I would do. What I think is going to happen is you have to look at the teams in the NFL that are going to need a quarterback. And you mentioned it earlier, if all those quarterbacks, I mean, what do you do if you're, seriously, could Jimmy G be the starting quarterback in Tampa Bay next year? Could he be the starting quarterback in Carolina? I think Houston's going to roll Davis Mills, but it's an interesting question, believe it or not. What do you do? I mean, can he make the throws to win when the defenses force him to? I remember a certain game against Kansas City and Miami where the answer was no. But if I was San Francisco, I would build my team around Jimmy G. Because everything that they got is built for a Jimmy G team. And I think putting an X factor in like Trey Lance, which is what they're going to do next year, and it would be a mistake, in my opinion. But it's an interesting question. And I mean, took him to an NFC championship game last year. When I look at the NFC right now, I mean, do you really want to play San Francisco in the playoffs? I mean, that defense is as good as it gets, and you have all sorts of offensive weapons. So, yeah. So what it was is that, by the way, check out the response video, please. Please check out the response video I made. I really liked it. Denver Gator liked it too. Denver at Carolina. Carolina is a 2.5-point home dog. The over-under is free falling to 35. I really want to take the over because I can't put 35. I can't go under 35 in the NFL. However, this game has 13-10 written all over it. Both teams have really good defenses. Sam Darnold's actually going to start, so that's going to be interesting. I really want to take the over on this. This is going to be a fun game. I'm actually really looking forward to it, even though it's two teams with losing records, because you have some very, very good defensive players. And you also have in Carolina a team that's probably going to just dismantle itself and come back together. Probably going to have a brand new quarterback, probably a rookie. Look at Bryce Young or CJ Stroud or Will Levis. It was funny. I shared this with Denver Gator. There is a mock draft for Will Levis. Levis goes number 2, and Denver Gator loved that mock draft. So next up, Las Vegas Raiders at Seattle. Seattle's a 3.5-point home favorite. Over under 47.5. I'm gonna level with you here. If you like Seattle, take it now. I really thought that the line on this game would be closer to 5, and I'm really surprised it's not. I get that. Sorry, I was about ready to sneeze. I get that Vegas is in Vegas, and the Vegas odds makers want to cheer for Vegas, but Vegas has had Denver's number. I think it's 6 straight wins against the Broncos, and they can't beat anybody else. Why would you have them beating Seattle, a team that's playing really well? I'm drawing a blank here. Didn't Seattle have a bye last week? Am I on crack? Yeah, they had a bye. So you have Pete Carroll off of a bye. Denver Gator, I forgot about that when we were picking our games. I forgot Seattle had a bye. So listen, if you like Seattle, and I do, I might have to put some action on that one. If you like Seattle, take them now. Take them at 3.5. I might actually have to make a bet on Seattle myself. I forgot about them having a bye, but this line's going to go up. Don't be surprised if it hits 5 at kickoff. Next up, Rams at Kansas City. Kansas City is a 14.5-point favorite. Over under is at 44. I want to find out Stafford's definitely playing, because if he is, I'm probably going to take the Rams to cover, and I'm going to take the over. If you watch my video below and you watch some of those awesome shorts I put out, they are really good. I mean, I try to keep them at 15 seconds. So if you haven't checked out the shorts, please check them out. They're 15 seconds long. They're pretty good. I like the Rams, and I like the over. I like the Rams, and I like the over. It's going to be beautiful weather in Kansas City. I mean, today was 60 degrees and sunny, and tomorrow should be an ice blizzard. You don't know what the fuck's going to happen here. So, yeah. And then finally, Green Bay at Philly. Philly's a 7-point home favorite. Over under 46. Slasher. I keep, before the season started, Green Bay was the team I thought that would go to the Super Bowl. If I didn't think so much about Green Bay before the season, if I thought that Green Bay was going to be anywhere close to what they're playing now, I would take Philly, and I would take the points, and I would take the over. I didn't check the weather report on this one. I need to. And I wouldn't even think twice about it. I really wouldn't, but because I had such a, this is bad for me. I shouldn't do this. I should learn to realize that, what the team is instead of what I thought they would be preseason. But I mean, this is, seriously, every logical indicator shows that not only would Philly win, they would cover. And I think the over would hit because, Green Bay can put up some points late. I mean, that just kind of makes sense. But I keep reaching back into seeing, those 13-win seasons, the 3 consecutive 13-win seasons that they had. Christian Watson has talent. There's some things to like here, but man. Yeah. To answer your question, the logic part of my brain wants to take Philly. I want to take the over. And then the part of me that really liked Green Bay at the beginning of the season is like, hold on, Dan, wait a minute. Can Green Bay turn it around? And I have not been good at picking Green Bay all year. So, but how do I look at this game? The one thing I will say is Philly's kind of struggled against the run a little bit with Ndamukong and Sue. I think this is really going to help out. I think now that I think a whole week of getting the playbook down, understanding what he's going to do. I mean, they're not going to ask him to do a lot of creative stuff. And I also think Philly, believe it or not, I think Philly might want to go into this game and say, let's just take away the run and have Rodgers beat our corners one-on-one. And normally that sounds like the dumbest thing in the world to say, but that's kind of what I would do if I was Philly, because you got a couple really good corners and play the proverbial 8 in the box, but really you want to put like 7 and 8 in the box and just say, hey, we're going to stop the run. Take your wide receivers and beat our corners. That's what I would do. And then on top of that, I would take advantage of the injuries on the Green Bay's front seven, even though the defense is not bad. The Green Bay's defense is not bad. I would try to get the running game going. So it's going to be a great Sunday night game. It's going to be a great game. I think the Packers make it a little more competitive, but on my final prediction, Friday. But this is not a game I'm betting on at all. But if I was, I would probably take the over. Even though both defenses are playing well, I would probably take the over if weather permits. And I didn't check the weather on this game because it's not one I'm looking at all. Next up, Pittsburgh at Indianapolis on Monday Night Football. It's kind of surprising that two teams with losing records are going to put up an exciting game, but I think this is really going to be a fun game. I mean, the Colts really kind of became rejuvenized, almost beat the Eagles last week. They beat the Raiders. Technically, they're still in the playoff picture. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, played Cincinnati tough. This could be the first year that Tomlin has a losing record. It's hard to believe we're saying that. I mean, you get Watt, he's coming back. And, it's going to be a fun game because the loser of this game's in really, really bad shape. Where the winner is like, you're sort of kind of in the playoff picture, especially if it's the Colts. The over-under is 39, and I'll be honest with you, I love the over on this one. Even though the Colts play good defense, and then Steelers traditionally play good defense. They haven't really played great defense this year, but this is actually going to be a really good Monday night game. And Funk says, amazement, I love Crazy Jerry. Crazy Jerry is it's funny. I told a Cowboys fan years ago that he reminds me a lot of Al Davis without the football knowledge, and he got really pissed. And when I say that, it's because Al Davis was a former coach. Then he became the general manager, and then he was also a guy that was really, really big in the scouting and going to the schools. And I'm going to rant a little bit, but I'll try to keep it contained. What happened was in the 60s, the Kansas City Chiefs recruited a bunch of players from HBCU schools, the small black colleges. They recruited a bunch of black football players from the small colleges, which in the 60s you didn't do. The Chiefs were the first team to have a defense fielded by more black players than white players. And Willie Lanier was the first linebacker in NFL history to be a black middle linebacker. A lot of people feel like he's the greatest middle linebacker in NFL history. He is the greatest linebacker in Chiefs history. My boy, Big Chief Sean, I haven't seen him around here for a while, and we were going to do a show together. He couldn't make it. He had some things happen. he put Derek Thomas as the GOAT, and he got a lot of likes and everything because he doesn't really know Chiefs history. But Willie Lanier is the greatest linebacker in Chiefs history, and the greatest outside linebacker is Bobby Bell. But so what the Raiders did is they were getting beat by the Chiefs, who had all these great players from small black schools. So what he did is he ended up recruiting Art Shell and Gene Upshaw, and they started kind of capitalizing on this. And then remember, Art Shell was the very first black NFL head coach. And then, Tom Flores, very first Hispanic head coach. So when I say that Al Davis has football knowledge, that Jerry doesn't have Al Davis's football knowledge, it's not slight against Jerry. It's just that Al Davis revolutionized football. And the NFL is not nearly as good of a product as it would be without Al Davis's innovations and all the great things Al Davis did. But towards the end of his career, I mean, he was just doing some crazy stuff. And that's why, Jerry Jones being compared to Al Davis, to me, makes a lot of sense. He does a lot of the same things, but he doesn't have football knowledge of Al Davis. And that's not a slight on Jerry Jones. It's not an insult. Al Davis knew more about football than anybody. I mean, here's a guy, he was the coach at USC, took over as coach of the Raiders, ended up taken over as general manager. Then he was the owner. I mean, one thing Al Davis did is that he always timed people at the starting line. He said, you can always get the 40 times at the end, but I want to see how the player starts off. And it's brilliant. And there's a lot of scouts nowadays that do the same thing. It's like, I just wait and see what the 40 time is. I'm going to see how he starts. And, the first 10 yards, that's another thing. Another thing about Al Davis was that he hired the very first NFL strength and conditioning coach. You may recognize the name Marv Maranovich. I don't know how many of you know the Todd Maranovich story, but yes, that was Marv Maranovich's father. Marv Maranovich's son was Todd Maranovich. All right, I ranted way too long about that. Jerry Jones is a billionaire with the fantasy football team. It's actually, the guy who's a billionaire with the fantasy football team is the guy selling the team in Washington, Daniel Jones. No, it's not Daniel Jones. It's Daniel. Was it? God, I want to say Daniel Johnson, but yeah. The guy who's in Washington selling the team. I haven't heard too much about that story yet. Like he was going to sell it, and then now everybody's paying attention to the football team. So what's happening in the owner's box? But I think guys like Jerry Jones though are really good for the NFL, and I think they know it. Brilliant businessman, and they're kind of villains. I mean, that was the thing about Al Davis. Like, you wanted to beat Al Davis. Like, you wanted to beat Jerry Jones. You want to see the Cowboys fail. And I think it's awesome. I was always getting sick of seeing the Cowboys on primetime TV because even if they had a bad team, they'd have even if they went 5-11, I'm talking back in the day, they would always be on prime time. And I was like, I don't want to watch the Cowboys play. I'm an AFC guy. So it's kind of funny that you keep saying this because, normally here's what happens when you win a lot of games, you're on prime time a lot. Like Kansas City's on prime time a lot. If they were a 4-win team this year, people would be saying the same thing, but because they're one of the more exciting teams, and Patrick Mahomes is the most, I think, the front runner for MVP. That's why you see him on TV. So I think a guy like Jerry Jones is good for football, and he's great to cheer against. I like cheering against him personally, so it's kind of interesting. I should have led off with it, and I didn't do it, but. Zach Wilson, if you didn't hear about it, so he was interviewed after the game, and I really should have Dan Schneider. That's the Washington Commanders owner. Anyway, so Zach Wilson after the game, I'm pretty sure all of you saw this, but they asked if he felt the offense let the team down or the defense down. He just responded no, and that was it. And he had kind of a childish look on his face, and everybody's been mocking him. And then after that press conference, the Jets, announced that they weren't sure who's going to be the starting quarterback. And I kind of wanted to lead off with that. And I didn't because I don't know. I just got excited, started drinking my energy drink. And I wanted to talk about this. It's really important that, when you're an NFL quarterback, not to do this. I don't know where I was going with that. I'll be honest with you, but Zach Wilson just needs to figure some things out, and hopefully he got pulled aside and get some public speaking lessons. Something I might need a little bit of myself. And with that, I am going to go ahead and log off here. I'm gonna call it the night. Just real quick, check out the description below. Watch my picks video I did with Denver Gator. He has been red hot all year long, and I got action on one of the games. Check out the video, and also I made a bunch of shorts, so please check those out. I recognize everybody here. You're all regulars, but if you are tuning in and you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up. And share this. Let's just get this community growing here a little bit. And Zach the MILF Hunter Wilson. This is, you know what? I wish I kind of wish I knew more about this story, and wish I knew less about it all at the same time. If you don't know, Zach Wilson apparently either hit on or slept with his good friend's mom. So I mean, to tell you the truth, I mean, when the story came out, I really didn't think much of it. I don't know how many of you, it's not, I don't know the band, but how many of you have heard the song Stacy's Mom? I mean, I can't think of anybody's mom, but there was a few teachers. I was like, yeah, we had this one teacher. I was like, yeah. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with a 20-year-old guy, wanting to hook up with a late 30s-year-old girl. I didn't really have too much of a problem with it. But the thing is, does it lead to anything on the field? And it shows kind of a level of immaturity that does show up on the field. It kind of shows something like you're not thinking that this correlates with his play, but it kind of does. It shows a level of immaturity. And when you're immature, you probably don't pay attention to detail. You probably aren't doing the extra film study. And that's kind of what it looks like on the field, is that you got a guy who's a little entitled, who doesn't put the work in, and that's leaning to forward play against the Patriots. But the one thing I think that's really left out of the whole thing is people aren't paying attention that the New England Patriots defense is really cranked it up the last couple of weeks. Another reason why I like them to beat Minnesota. So, but do check out the picks video anyway, even though I just told you my Thanksgiving pick. Listen, I'm going to be back Friday. Hopefully, I'm really want to talk about Lions win Friday. And that's it. If anybody else has anything, all my social media links are below. Check out the picks video. I'll be back Friday.